1%er Podcast with Sam Bakhtiar, bringing you the 1% knowledge to help you reach your full potential. Learn what it takes to rise above the 99% and become a 1%er.
Hey guys, welcome to the 1%er Podcast. This is your host, Sam Bakhtiar, and I'm here with Chris Pfaff, a.k.a. Drama, in the Young and Restless headquarters.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me,
How
bro.
are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Man.
I'm proud to be a part of the 1% here.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Now, tell me the name Drama.
Yeah.
You know, where did that come from?
Oh, man, I hate to say it because it was super embarrassing. When I was young, back then we had AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like, what Instagram kind of is today. And everyone had their like cheesy screen name. Mine was Causing Drama. I don't know where it came from. Listened to a lot of
Yours
rap
was
music.
Causing Drama.
Causing Drama.
Got it, okay.
And I listened to a lot of rap music growing up.
Me
I was
too.
probably heavily influenced.
Okay,
and
what was your favorite rap group back in the day?
I think my all-time, like, if I had to say I ever had like an anthem, it was early Young Jeezy.
Okay.
Because
okay.
he had a line that said, "The world is yours and everything in it. It's out there. Get on your grind and get it." And I had that written on a whiteboard when I was like 16. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get out of this town and I'm going to, And so anyway, so my name was Causing Drama. Then MySpace started. My name was Causing Drama on there. So when I graduated high school, I emailed, because I wanted to move to LA, I emailed my cousin, Rob Dyrdek, who I went on to become great friends with and do all these TV shows with. And I said, but I didn't really know him at the time. And I said, hey man, it's your cousin. I'm going to be moving to LA soon. Listen, if I can scrub your floors, if I can do your laundry, I'll do anything. I just need to make money. I need to figure out how to survive there. And all he wrote back was, Causing Drama? What the hell?
I can see Rob. I know Rob pretty well.
Oh, I know, yes.
I can see Rob like, what the fuck is Causing Drama?
And I was devastated because for me, now I know, right? Now that's just him. But at the time, I was like, this was my shot.
Rob is funny.
Yes.
But to the point, too.
Yes, exactly. And so I was like, well, I just blew it, whatever. So then I ended up coming out, and when I came out, we ended up connecting. And I went over to his house, and he had printed, because I had these really cheesy MySpace photos wearing like LeBron James jerseys and stuff, and he had printed them all out on his table and told everyone that my name was Drama. So everyone was just like, oh, Drama's here. What's up, Drama? Rob's little cousin, whatever. And it just stuck. And
That's awesome.
So it all started from a corny screen name.
Now, we were, talking off camera,
Yeah.
and you said you're from Akron, Ohio.
That's
You
it.
were born, raised in Akron, Ohio,
Yeah.
went to high school, graduated from Akron.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I'm from, a little town close to you as well.
Yeah.
And my cousin came, now he stays with me.
That's
And he works
amazing.
for me, so we have kind of similar thing.
Yeah, there you go.
So growing up, you didn't know Rob.
No.
And what's the age difference between you and Rob?
13 years. He's 13 years older than me.
Okay.
Yep.
So you knew that you had a cousin that was successful, who
Yep.
was a skateboarder.
Yep.
You were a skateboarder.
Yep.
And you said, you know what, I want to come check out LA.
Yep.
Before you coming out to be with them and stay with them.
Yeah.
How much contact, how much communication did you guys have, or did you have?
So this is the way it worked. So I knew I had this pro skateboarder cousin who lived in LA, and to me, that was just really cool. Like it was like, in Ohio, if you had like a professional, like, I don't know, like a dirt bike racer, like it was just like, that's so cool. Like I have this cool cousin that exists. And I saw him a few times my childhood, but where he grew up and where I grew up are actually 3 hours away from each other. So his family, when he would go for holidays or whatever, we weren't even really close to each other. So every now and then we catch a glimpse of him. I remember when we were super young, he would bring T-shirts from like his sponsors and give them to all the family, and we just thought like, wow, like this guy gets paid to ride a skateboard. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, I know from a little Ohio town.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
And making money to skateboard, like it was so absurd. And so then that was it. And then we had visited him a couple times. Then my brother and I got really into skateboarding, and so then Los Angeles is like the skateboard capital of the world. It's like the coolest place in the world if you're a skateboarder. And so all we would do for every family vacation is just beg my parents to bring us to Los Angeles. And so on the couple times that they were able to actually do that, we would go skate with Rob for a few hours. And that was like, whoa. Like, not only is he a pro skateboarder, now we know what he is, we understand what he is because we're skateboarders, but we're in Los Angeles, we're going to all these famous places and skateboarding. And even those couple hours were like, they meant so much to us, and we would go back so inspired and whatever. So from as early as I can remember, I knew I wasn't going to college. I knew that the moment I graduated, I was going to do whatever it took to get to LA. So that was the plan, and then when I got here, he was the obvious person to reach out to and be like, hey, how can I do anything?
watched one of your interviews. I don't know which one it was.
Yeah.
And you told me you had a clever way of coming up with the money to move to LA.
Yeah.
You know, you had like 3 methods, right?
Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah.
You know, can you tell me about that? Because I was like mind blown. I'm like, what? Did you actually say that on camera?
Yeah.
So can you tell me how you got the money to move to LA?
Yeah. One I'm proud of, one I'm indifferent, and one I am not proud of or advocating. So number one was I got graduation money from graduating. Now, at the time, I think that total was like around $1,000, but to me, that was a lot of money. Yeah. The one I'm proud of is I learned how to film and edit because I would film and edit my friends skateboarding. And I would go sell skateboard videos to all the local skate shops of my friends skating. So it would be kind of like, you know, this was before social media. So we were saying like, here's the Akron kids. This is what we are doing. We're kind of a crew. So you can watch what we're doing if you go to your local skate shop in Canton or Cleveland or whatever. And there was actually a mini market for that. So I made another few $100 from that. And then I had this little hustle that I figured out where you could go to Best Buy and you could, if you took a used like iPod box, you could go in and say that you were there for a repair, and you could swap it out with a new one and they wouldn't catch it. And so, not proud of it, not advocating it, but I had a little hustle where I was flipping iPods at school from my little Best Buy sort of racket. So,
you know,
just being honest.
I love that. You know, not advocating and I say this and that, but I just told you how hungry you were.
Yeah.
You know, I bet you if you said, hey, you can give blood and make some money, you would have gave blood and you would have came to California.
Of course. And I, you know, the other thing is I figured out, did I say that? I was making the skate videos, and then I figured out, the other one that I'm proud of is I figured out that one time my aunt asked me to film my cousin's Little League football game. She said, can you film this for us? We just would love to watch it back. So I said, yeah. So I went to the game, I filmed it. Well, I realized I could film it the same way I was filming skateboarding. I could edit it the same way I was editing skateboarding, but it was much easier. And I could go back and I could sell, you know, you could print the DVDs off of your Mac, and you could sell those DVDs to all the parents. And so I'd go back the week after and I'd sell all these DVDs to all the parents. And I made, you know, probably $700 to $1,000 doing that. So it was those little hustles as well. But yes, I was hungry to do it however I could.
So how was it? I know when I first came to California from a little town in Ohio as well.
Yeah.
You know, I was blown away because where I'm from. So your town Akron is a little bit bigger than Sharon.
Yep.
And Sharon's a very small town, very homogeneous. I was the only minority there. Yep. And where I came from, if you drove like a Honda Accord or better, you were either a doctor or a lawyer, or if you were young, you were automatically a drug dealer. You got searched.
Yep.
You know, so when I came to LA, I was looking at everybody was driving Benzes and BMWs. I was like, oh my God, how is this possible? Yeah. Was it a culture shock when you first came to LA? And then not only that, you were next to your cousin, and I'm sure he has like a lot of rich friends around him, and the TV show and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it was insane. I can't
imagine.
I can't even explain how crazy it was, because here's what happened. So to your point about the Honda Accords, the idea, like all I wanted in life was like a slightly used Honda Civic. I thought that would be like the end all be all. And there was a kid, I remember there was a kid that may have been a drug dealer that had a Ford Explorer that was only like 4 years used. And he had rims that he would only put on in the summer because in the winter the salt damage. Right?
I did the same thing.
There you go, right? Yeah. So and I was thinking like, oh my God, like this is what success looks like. Is, you know, at the time it was like a '99 Ford Explorer with some rims you can put on in the summer.
And 4 years used, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, only 4 years. Only 4 years. And so that was it. So that was my bar. And so then I moved here, and all I cared about was skateboarding. I didn't, you know, obviously I had that entrepreneurial hustler spirit, but I didn't necessarily have that, like I see a lot of kids now that are 18, 19 that are like already planning what their private jet's gonna look like, right? Like my appetite wasn't that high. So I came out here. You have to understand, I then started hanging out with my cousin. At the time, my cousin was driving I think it was a C-Class Benz, and that was like,
oh yeah,
what the hell?
In Akron, Ohio, that's, you know what
I mean, unheard of.
Yes, that's a Maybach.
Yes, so that was like unheard of. And then, yeah, like he had successful friends. And then, you know, out here, you just sort of meet, you fall into these circles, you meet this guy who has some weird hustle, and he has a Bentley, and then this guy and whatever. And then it was a year after I moved here that we started doing Robin Big, the TV show. So that obviously opened us up to, like, you know, for instance, now on New Year's, I think when I was 20 years old, we went to Vegas for the first time. And now we have a VIP host who's taking care of us and showing us around and making sure that, our after party is in the real world suite. And like, it's just this whole other thing. And so now you're really seeing money and success on a totally different scale, all within a very short period of time.
Absolutely. It's like your proximity changed, right? And you saw what is possible. In my little town, like Sharon, man, I mean, I couldn't see what was possible. My appetite wasn't that big because my surroundings wasn't that big. But when you come to a bigger pond, and now you're like, wow, there are a lot bigger fishes, a lot bigger things to do. And so at that time, what was your thoughts?
I think my thoughts, so the way that I am, if I'm being honest and not trying to sound like super entrepreneur here, I've always been very hungry and I've always been willing to do the work. But I can't say that, like I said, I always had my appetite set on owning a business and driving all these cars. Like, it was really that move and that opening my eyes to all of that that said, oh my God, this is possible. And I remember almost the moment when I accepted that this person that lived a life that I had never even dreamed of was a person just like me. And that was the biggest breakthrough for me ever. And that's what inspired my podcast, and a lot of what I do is I still talk to family members and stuff like that back in those small towns. And I think the biggest thing that keeps so many people back is just truly not believing that they could do it. And you kind of set this bar for yourself. And I think that if you set the bar low and you just accept that your life is not how you want it to be, and some people's lives are miserable, and you can just sort of stew in that. And it's just such a shame because it doesn't actually take a college degree. It takes getting around people and accepting that you can be more than what you thought you could be. And for me, that was like the change.
It's so true. It's so true because I was an aspiring bodybuilder when I was younger, and I was looking at, the magazines, and I would see the top bodybuilders, and when I came to LA, next thing you know, I'm working out right next to them. Next thing you know, I'm hanging out with them. Next thing I know, I see what their training routine is. And I learn from them. And next, then I became the first bodybuilder in history to have a first place title in every weight class. But it wasn't, I never thought it was possible when I was there. And being in proximity of people who've already been there and doing it, kind of just totally changed everything for me.
It is so, I cannot, and if you're in one of those small towns now or you're relating to that, try to find it in books, podcasts, like whatever you can. I think it's really interesting because I'm seeing, because I still talk to a lot of, mainly my family. I don't have any friends left, but my family back in Ohio. And like, we have all this access to podcasting, to social media and all this stuff. But I also see how if your mindset is that you'll never be that, you view it through this, it's the same thing. You view it through the window of, I'll never be that, but let me just sit here and see how bad I've really got it, because I'm going to compare myself to all these things. And I'm just saying, the power of getting yourself around people that, it doesn't even matter if you don't know what you want to do with your life. Just getting around people that are doing well, that are achieving things, that are happy, and just learning what they're doing is a game changer.
Were you kind of uncomfortable when you were around those people at first? When did you like, well, do I even belong in this circle? There's these celebrities, there's these people driving Bentleys, and you kind of like, oh my God, like, am I sitting right? Am I eating right? Are they looking at me differently? Was that a problem for you? Because it was a problem for me.
Yes, and I'll tell you this, to be honest, I deal with it still today because I'm the same person. It's just that the bar has risen. So this is what happens nearly every time, and happened then, it happens now. If I go into a situation where I feel like I'm outgunned, sure. I go in thinking all those things. I go in thinking, gosh, I'm gonna look stupid. They're gonna know I'm don't have a college degree, blah, blah, blah. And then almost every time I leave and say, gosh, that's it? They're normal. They're just like me. Like now I
eat, shit, and sleep just like I do.
Yes, and like I've met some incredible people now and been around them in private sort of dinners or spaces where they're able to really be themselves. And I almost always leave and say, I still look up to them and they're still incredible. But it's like, gosh, like you saw them slip up, you saw them have a goofy moment, you saw them be awkward, and it's like, they're just a person. And so that happened then, and that happens now. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people from getting in circles that they're not comfortable with, but man, you gotta break through that.
I'm so glad you said that, because I felt like that when I first came, you know, and then even recently I felt like that. You know, a few weeks ago, we got invited to an event, and we were, you know, with some really wealthy people, you know, and so wealthy that I think, you know, some of the wife's rings cost as much as my house. You know what I mean? And I was looking at it, and I was like, do I even, like, you know, I started like second guessing, why am I in that room? And then I realized, man, you know, just like it was before, you know, they're just humans. You know, they're just humans, man.
And this is gonna sound super cheesy, but like, the same way you're a bodybuilder, the same way in the gym, you know, if you don't have one of those workouts where you feel like you're just gonna die and you gave it all you got, pretty often, you're not making progress. And I honestly believe, and trust me, I'm not saying this is motivation, I'm saying because I have to remind myself, if too much time goes by where I'm not in a room where I feel like I don't belong, I'm probably being way too comfortable.
I'm 100%.
You know, and I'm not 100%. Progressing. And because now I look back 5 years ago at the rooms I used to think I didn't belong in, and those are some of my best friends, or those are people I think are so silly. But it's all moving forward, you know?
So when you came to stay for a month, and from what I remember, seeing some of your interviews, that you were ready to go back home, you know, and then the day before you were going back home, Rob's assistant quit, and he asked you to have the job, right? And a lot of his friends were like, well, man, I don't know if you want to get his job. And I can relate to that because my cousin works for me, you know, and I know how I am, I'm one way with family, but I'm a whole different animal at work. I'm super focused. I'm super, I'm deadline oriented, and you know, at certain times I have to be a dick because I just got to move shit forward, right? And so most of their friends said don't, but he said, you know what? I remember your interview. You said, you know what? I can fuck something up for 6 months. You know, what's the worst it can be, right?
Yeah. Who cares? Yeah.
So tell me about that journey, and was Rob hard on you, and how much did you learn at that time?
Yeah. So the way that went was, so I came out in November. I came out on November 10th, and here was the plan. I was going to come out. He was going to let me stay with him while I looked for apartments. Then I was going to go home for Christmas and come back out and move into that apartment that I had found and work at the local skate shop. So that was the plan. So either way, I was moving to LA, but I was headed for, you know, working at the skate shop, whatever. And that was the story. On the last day, pretty much, his assistant quit and said he couldn't do it. Rob literally came walking out into the kitchen and said, gosh, what am I going to do? He said, do you want to do it? And I said, oh man, I don't even know. I didn't even know what a personal
what assistant. What is an assistant?
Yeah, like I had no idea, right? It's like, what even is that? And so, so the same thing happened. What you just said, a lot of his friends were like, hey man, just don't do it. Just be his cousin, be his friend. When he works, he's very, very serious. And same thing, I said, well look, why not try it? And if not, I'll just go work at the skate shop and I'll have my apartment and whatever. So I went against what they said. I said, sure, man, let's give it a shot. I love him to death. He was incredibly hard on me. He did not, and he also is very, you know, when he's getting work done, he's very blunt, he's very whatever. And I wasn't used to it. Like, there was many times when, you know, I used to smoke cigarettes at the time. And I remember I would be out on the front steps of his house, like kind of hiding, smoking cigarettes and just like, man, I don't know if I can do this, you know?
God, we have so much in common.
Yes. And it was really, and the funny thing about it is then we went into TV and it looked like we had the most fun lives ever, which we did. And so I couldn't complain to anyone, right? Because they're like, shut up, what are you talking about? So I would do that. And then actually later, in one of the final episodes of Fantasy Factory, we did an episode where I had started writing a journal. And I had started writing like, today was so tough, like Rob was so mean to me and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how much longer I can take this. And what's funny is when I lived with him for a period, I accidentally left it at his house.
You read it?
Yes, and so he found this journal of me and from when I was 18 saying, I don't know if I could take it, Rob's so fucking mean. And we did this funny episode of like making it right and burning the journal, whatever. So yes, in the very beginning, it was tough. I didn't think I had made the right decision. Whatever. I learned so much.
That's what I wanted to hear. It's
Yeah.
funny because my cousin came to live with me, from our little town, Sharon, PA,
Yeah.
to here, and at the time 18,
Yeah.
I got him a job at one of our gyms. I got a job at a Nissan dealership.
Yeah.
So he worked for 4 days. Now, mind you, he's here with like less than $100 in his pocket.
Yeah.
But he's wearing $200 Jordans.
Yeah.
He has an iPhone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And a gold chain.
Yep. Oh yeah, all the priorities.
Yeah, right.
You gotta make sure your priorities are straight.
So after 4 days, I'll never forget. After 4 days, he comes up to me and says, "I don't know, Sam. I'm working like 12 hours a day. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this." And I literally sat down with him. I said, "You gotta be fucking kidding me."
Yeah.
I said, "You can be related to me."
Yep.
Because I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I work till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I said, "This is what you got? This is all you got in your name?
Yeah.
And you're not hungry?"
Yeah.
So I said, "You know what? Get your shit. Get out."
Yeah.
That's what I told him.
Yeah.
So he did. He left. Then he went back home. Few years passed. He didn't, nothing going. He got in some bad stuff. He got jumped, got his jaw broken, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now he came back. Now he was ready.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think part of the reason, most of the entrepreneurs are hard to work with because they're very driven.
Yeah.
And they have to have people at their speed. I think Rob was probably a little harder on you because you're family. You're his cousin, right?
Yep.
I'm so much harder on my cousin than any employees that I have, and he knows it. Like, I expect him to be above and beyond. I remember I got a complaint from our COO, and it says, "Hey man, I'm having a hard time with your cousin, and I have this." I'm like, "Why are you calling me?"
Yeah.
I mean, what's the protocol?
Yeah.
Write his ass up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm like, don't run it by me. He's no different than anyone else.
Yes.
Write his ass up.
Yeah.
So,
100%. I think that I'm trying to think of how to put this into proper words, but I think one of the greatest disservices that we do to young people is we make them think that life is easier than what it really is.
Thank you.
And I think parents can do that. I think there's a lot of great parents, and I can't imagine, I'm not a parent, so I can't imagine how hard it is, but there's a lot of great parents that really stunt the chances of their kids' ultimate success because they coddle too much.
Yep.
And I think that young employers, young whatever, and the thing that's so crazy about this thing, because it's coming up a lot in the news, the Away CEO just resigned from calling people brain dead, and I don't think that's right, but it's a very weird time where you have to be very careful what you say and how you act. But my point is, I think at some point there's a very thin line there where you're doing people a disservice, and they're always going to live their life wondering why they were never able to create that life that they wanted, why they're not quite happy, why I'm not quite fulfilled. And then you start doing the worst thing you can possibly do, which is life is unfair.
Yeah,
oh gosh, that'll get you. And that is a miserable place to be.
Sometimes, me and my daughters, we were having fun and stuff like that. And one of my daughters said, "That's not fair." And I'm like, that's not, we don't say that. The Bakhtiar, don't use that word. Don't drop it out of your vocabulary. Not fair is not in our vocabulary. And it's just something that me and Andy Priscilla talk about all the time. And I think that society has become muted. Nobody wants to speak their mind. Everybody is afraid and they're walking on eggshells. And it's time for a change. It's time for us to, my duty and obligation as a father is not to be my kid's best friend. It's for me to raise kids so once I'm gone, they're functioning members of the society, not dysfunctional members where they can't even feed for themselves.
Yeah, it's funny because you think you're doing the greatest service to them and you're actually doing the greatest disservice.
Absolutely.
And I think there has to be, I'm no one to give parenting advice, but I will give sort of running a business or leadership advice, and that is that you have to find that line. And there's never a place for straight up bullying or any sort of racial things, or that's why I think even the Away lady, saying brain dead, I don't know, on an all channel Slack, you're getting a little aggressive. Now, whatever, do I think it deserves stepping down and being fired? Not necessarily, but whatever. My point is, there's a very thin line where you have to toughen people up, and that's why I always use the sports or the gym reference. The only thing, I'll tell you this, I'm not a big crier, right? I don't cry when I watch sad movies with my girlfriend or anything like that. The one thing that will make me tear up is when you see someone, that moment when someone all of that misery and hard work paid off.
Yeah.
It could be someone like winning The Voice for me, you know, where their family is like, oh, or it could be obviously a sports achievement. That moment of like, man, I know you suffered, but right now you're seeing that it was all worth it. Yeah. And we're not all LeBron James are going to be great athletes, but you can all have that moment where it was worth it, you know. Absolutely. So that's, yeah, it's an interesting.
You know, I was reading a book, How to Raise Successful People.
Yeah.
I'm just in the middle of it. And last night, you know, we have a 5-month-old. Yeah. And, you know, my wife complains about, you know, oh my God, he doesn't get any sleep. I'm up all night and all that kind of stuff. And we know the answer. Yeah. Everybody knows that, you know, if your child is crying, you know, if he's not hungry, he doesn't need change, there's nothing wrong with him. Just let him cry. He's going to eventually go back to sleep. Because if you keep picking him up, you know, he's going to be dependent on that. You know, he wants you to pick him up. You know, but it's easier said than done.
Of course.
It's easier said than done. So my wife all the time, middle of the night, she picks him up, she cuddles him, and she puts him. And then I was reading a book, and it says that, you know, the best thing you can do is show your children from the very beginning, even when they're sleeping at that stage, as infants, that they can put themselves to sleep. They don't need you. You want to make sure that they want to be with you and they don't need to be with you.
Yes.
You know,
that's the crucial differentiation.
Yes.
And I think that happens. I see that with 40, 30-year-olds in my office, right? You still have to like remind people like, you got this. Yeah. You know, you don't need me. I'm glad that you want to be here and you want to be a part of this, but you got this. Yeah. You know, so it's important. But so, that's where I learned that.
So you worked for Rob, you know, as his assistant. When did you get the idea of The Young and the Reckless? Yep. How did that come by?
So the way that it went for me is I came out here and I started working for him, and obviously, like I said, it was super tough at the time. But at the same time, now I watch them, you know, him and Big Black start to package a TV show, and now the TV show is getting bought, and there's executives from MTV in the living room watching them in the backyard, and it's just like, whoa. And so when I'm seeing all this, the way that my brain works, sometimes for better or for worse, is I want to figure out my thing. You know, it's like I've never been one, I've seen a lot of people through my life that just want to be in very close proximity to the tip of the spear, but don't quite want the pressure of being it. Yeah. And I wanted to figure out my thing. So the first thing that I dabbled in was music production and making beats, and because I grew up playing the drums. And so I went and I bought a little keyboard from the Guitar Center, and I started making beats, and I started going to the executive producers of the show and like hustling them to put my beats in the background of the show. So like when you come back from commercial and stuff on old Rob and Big episodes, there's these like terrible ringtone beats, and like that was me. and I was like, oh my gosh, like I made an ASCAP account. I started getting publishing checks for like, you know, 150 bucks. I was like, whoa, like this is gonna be it. So that's where my wheels started turning, that I was like, okay, this is how I'm gonna quit working for Rob. I'm gonna be a music producer. And to make a very long story short, that kind of, you know, started, and around the same time is when I started coming up with the idea for Young and Reckless. And really, I think the main thing was like, I saw that I was fortunate enough to have this incredible platform. I had now built a pretty good social media following early in those days. And making beats, I couldn't leverage any of that, making beats, because no one gives a crap. You know what I mean? If you're a rapper and this kid from a reality show sends you a beat, that's probably actually worse than, you know what I'm saying? And so I had mild success in that, but I started really trying to think, how could I launch something that I could launch a whole new life for me, I could run forever, and I could leverage what I have now to do. And that idea was Young and Reckless. And one thing that, through the whole process of Rob and Big and Fantasy Factory, I loved Rob, and I you know, looked up to Rob, but I didn't see myself in Rob in the sense of he is a natural born entertainer. Any room, any camera, anything, he will dominate.
Oh yeah, I'm not, like I've you know, been to dinner with Rob a few times, and he is just like, you know, yeah, you're right. He just can turn it on.
Yes,
you know
and it's, I've never seen people gravitate to someone like they do to him.
Yes.
I don't have that. Yeah. What I really looked up to, or who I really connected with during that phase, was Ken Block, who was the owner of DC Shoes. Because I saw like, gosh, how cool, this guy created something, and Rob wears it, and all these guys wear it, and you get to do deals, and you get to say, oh, you have this new show coming up, here's an incredible deal, and he gets to kind of run the whole thing without having to perform or entertain. And I started to connect with people like that. There was an early brand called Rogue Status that Rob wore on the show all the time with guns all over it. And this guy Johan is the one who started that down in Venice Beach. And I was like, gosh, that's so cool. You know, he just hangs out in Venice Beach. He has his crew, and they have this clothing line. So started really gravitating to that. Wanted something I could leverage from the show. When Fantasy Factory started, I was like, this is my chance. If I'm ever going to have a chance, this is my chance. Big Black had moved to Texas to raise his daughter. It was just Rob and I. This is it. And so I just, you know, I brainstormed on the name, the logo, all this stuff. Young and Reckless was the thing. Found a guy to help me design logos, figured out how to do trademarks, got it all kind of set up, went and found business partners.
So let's talk about the business partners part.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes.
So when you came up with the idea, okay, you said you went and found business partners.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, why did you seek business partners? Because usually you seek business partners for either knowledge or money,
Yep.
or maybe both.
Yep.
You know, and did you ever go to Rob and say, hey, Rob, you want to partner up with this?
Yes. So first thing I did was went to Rob. I remember we had a little meeting out by his pool at his house, and I thought this was my big thing, you know, because even though he's my cousin, it was still intimidating to me at the time, right?
Of course.
And so we have a meeting with him, his manager, and me, and we're out by his pool, and I'm like, okay, this is the concept. It's called Young and Reckless, and blah, blah, blah. And like the sentiment was kind of, once again, condensing the story, was kind of like, all right, go do it. And I was devastated. You know, like when Big Black had started his clothing line, Rob helped him out a lot, and Rob, you know, was very involved in a lot of people's stuff. And I was devastated. I took it as like a personal,
insult. Right?
yeah, like I was
can
like,
see that.
what? Like I thought the way this worked was, I come up with an idea, I bring it to you, and you make it real, right?
Yes,
and once
yes.
again, another huge learning experience, because had that actually happened, no diss to Rob, but the way that would have went, I'm very sure that Young and Reckless would no longer exist, right? Because that would have went to like DC or something. It would have been some weird partnership, and no one would have cared. So I knew I had to find someone to help me. I don't know how to make clothes. I was 20 years old at the time, and so I went around, and you know, luckily I had some good contacts and stuff from being on the show. Rob's old manager helped me meet some people, and I just took the concept and what it was, and I said, look, we can talk about it on the show. We have that ability. They're not going to take a piece of it. There's this huge opportunity, and I found the perfect people, and that's what it was. They didn't have any money to invest, but they knew how to make clothes, and they knew the basic things. And also their business, they make like button-ups and jeans and stuff like that, so it wasn't interfering with what I was making. And it was just perfect, and they believed in it. They were willing to take the weird risk, and that's what I really needed, and it ended up being perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's how did you pitch it to multiple people?
Yeah, you know, luckily it wasn't like multiple, like I didn't have to go around town and
Good.
pitch 20 people. I went to these guys. A funny story is these guys, who are still my business partners, I went to them during Rob and Big, and I said, hey, for $500 a month, I'll wear your clothing line on every episode. I wasn't a big enough part of the story yet, and so they were like, we don't really do that. We don't really know who you are, you know, whatever. And I was like, darn it, like devastated again.
$500 a month.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. That's all I wanted.
That's an Ohio hustle.
That's
right
it,
there.
man. And I just wanted that Explorer with rims, you know? And so they were one of the people that I went back to, and I said, hey, how about now? You know, here's a cool idea, and now there's this new show and whatever. And they ended up being the right people. So I got really lucky there.
That's awesome. So you started, you know, Young and Reckless.
Yep.
What year?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst time in history. I remember at 2009, it was my devastation. I almost lost it all. Literally almost lost it all. My house was, you know, started getting foreclosed on, and you know, I was negative $300 in the bank account. It was the worst of the worst time in economic history.
Yep.
So you started Young and Reckless in the worst economic time ever.
Yeah.
You know, how was that? I mean, tell me, you know, why did did your partners say, hey man, maybe not right now?
Yeah.
Because I know so many of my advisors like, Sam, it's not right now, it's not the time.
Yes.
Tell me how that went.
So here's the way that that's what I was telling you before we started recording is I have a really interesting take on that because of my experience. So for me, you know how they always say, when in the worst of times, that's when there's the most opportunity, and that's when some of the greatest things come from, and blah, blah, blah. Now, when you're going through that, and you have negative $300 in your bank account,
It's
and
hard to see that.
things are falling apart, you're like, yeah, okay, you know what I mean? I'm sure it is. I truly am an example that is true. And here's why. Had my business partners been having wild success, they probably wouldn't have had the time or the energy to invest in something new or put any time into something new. They only took on this weird idea because they were struggling and they were just hoping that they could get some money coming in from somewhere. The other thing is there was no expectations. The other thing is it put all of our retailers in this transition period where a lot of brands started having trouble and there was room for a new brand to come up. You know what I mean? And it also made me incredibly scrappy because, to be honest, my biggest benefit at that time was I didn't have anything to measure it against. So I didn't know great times. I only knew that time. And I didn't even acknowledge at the time that I was starting a business in a recession. I was just starting a business. And I saw all of these opportunities open up as we were going, but I didn't learn that until hindsight, right? So it ended up being like Young and Reckless would not have existed if I would have went around 5 years earlier and tried to do that. And still to this day, you know, we faced, my recession was when retail started collapsing. Because for me, I had spent 6 or 7 years traveling around the country showing buyers, trying to get my stuff in retailers.
One of your largest retailers were PacSun, right?
PacSun, yes. And PacSun, you know, they're doing great now, but they filed for bankruptcy a few years ago. And that was so scary for us. And a lot of all these retailers that
you lost all your distribution overnight.
Yeah, and we lost a growth strategy overnight because the plan is, it's a blueprint that has existed for decades. You travel around, you show buyers, you get some shelf space, you grow that shelf space, you open a new retailer, you grow that shelf space, and you do that enough times, and now you have this big brand, right? That was now gone because no one's growing brands. They're just trying to survive. And all these people, you know, Macy's that we were in and all this stuff is like, they're closing doors and they're not taking risks. And so that was my experience of, you know, but here's the thing, because we started.
When did that happen? When did you start seeing that happen?
It really hit us like probably 2014.
2014.
Yeah, because that's when like the initial panic started. And since then, doors have been closing and orders have been getting cut, right? So for me, once again, because I only knew that mentality of being scrappy and I never had these high expectations, we were able to quickly pivot and to really focus and learn e-com growth, learn all this stuff. And that's a whole different strategy and a whole different type of knowledge that we had to learn. But luckily, because it's so in our DNA that we started scrappy, we're down to get scrappy at any time. If something happened tomorrow, I'd be fine. I know how to deal with it. We'd tighten up, we'd figure it out, and then we'd re-expand.
Now, you know, obviously you had some growth and exponential growth. Did 2014, was that the first year that all of a sudden you saw a drop in sales? And, you know, absolutely. And was it significant?
It was luckily not incredibly significant, but it was probably, I don't know, 20% or something, which is, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Scary, but not, once again, I love those guys too, but a lot of our old competition, the people that we used to battle for shelf space with, are gone, literally gone. And that's like, whoa. Like, it's almost like seeing someone close to you die. It's like, whoa. Like, that was my biggest competition. Now they're nowhere to be seen. So a lot of people had it a lot worse. But there was this lull where we had to change strategies. We had to let a lot of people go. We had to cut a lot of costs, and we had to relearn a new
way to do business, new way to do business, new way to get your stuff out there.
And here's what's really funny for the audience now, because social media is like everything, right? At the time, I had just come off of being on a hit television show on MTV, and television was everything. Social media was like this silly way that you connect with your fans if you're famous. So we didn't even see like, we used to work with all the influencers and Logan Paul and all those guys. I had no idea that would be the new, that's above, now you have Will Smith trying to figure out YouTube, right? Like the thing has totally changed. So even learning that or accepting that things are very different than what you thought they would be, and this is now the focus, and digital marketing and all that stuff, a huge shift.
What did you learn from that? What was your biggest lesson when all of a sudden things went down? What was your number one business lesson that you learned from that downfall?
It was another tough lesson like those early ones, and like the one of Rob not investing. It was that it doesn't matter how much success you've had in the past, you're not guaranteed success tomorrow.
so good, man.
Yeah, and that one
So
hit me,
good.
like you can read that in 100 books,
It's so good.
but man, when you feel it, it hurts,
yeah,
you know?
That's so good. You know, I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and you know, they asked me, "What's your key to success?" And I said, number one is failure.
Yep.
You know, and number two is knowing that good times are not going to last,
Yep.
and bad times are not going to last.
Yeah.
So you just have to, you know, just go through and understand that's just a cycle of being in business and be able to do that. So you pivoted. You started doing more like, you know, influential marketing.
Yep.
You started doing more e-commerce marketing.
Yep.
You know, and that's where you were able to get it back up and be able to sustain.
Yep, 100%. So that meant like I said, we kind of learned and accepted this new reality. We hired different people. So it's like you essentially trade your sales team and your sales reps for digital marketing people,
Yep.
and you know, experts in email growth and all these different areas. And it's kind of like over a couple years we swapped bodies, you know, and we started learning it, and it started working. Luckily for me, Young and Reckless already was very known, and it already meant something to people, and that's the biggest thing. And so just changing the language and changing where we sold was the hard part. But once we did that, I think people were you know, receptive to it because they were familiar with the brand. So
would you say the reason that you were able to sustain being in business is because you were able to adapt fast and pivot fast?
Yeah.
You know, where some of the people that you said that you were fighting for shelf space,
Yep.
that they didn't adapt as fast, and they just knew that one way, and they weren't open to maybe adapting.
Yes, I think the number one thing is just accepting reality, period.
Yeah.
I think so many people have success, and then you start to get this complex that you know everything, and your judgment is better
Been
than
there,
all.
bro. Been there.
Exactly.
I've been there. Oh, yes, yes.
And that's what I'm saying is now when the form of distribution changes, it's not that you didn't know, it's not that you're stupid, it's not that you have to get off your little throne, it's like outside things changed.
Yeah.
And I think the number one reason for failure of the people that I saw go through something similar to us is they refused to accept that things had changed.
Yeah,
and
so
once you
good.
do that for too long, and that's what I see happening now with like the Macy's of the world.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, when you look at them and you walk into a mall and you go through the store, it's just like, how have you guys not get it? But people like that are so big and they're so stuck in their ways that it's hard
It's
to
funny you
pivot.
say that, you know, because I was looking to buy a calendar for 2020, and I ordered it from Staples.com, right? I went to Staples, they didn't have it, so I went to Staples.com and ordered it. 2 weeks later, it's still not here,
Yep.
right? Same calendar, I went to Amazon, bought it, it was here the next day,
Yep.
you know? And yesterday I went to buy some highlighters at Staples, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at, oh my God, I wonder how much rent they pay here.
Yeah.
And there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And I always wonder how much longer are they going to be in business?
Yeah.
Because that's like a dying model, right? Especially if you don't have the e-commerce site properly to be able to back it up. At least, you know, if you have, you know, something like online, you know, offline, then you have to have the online to back it up to be able to. But their online suck.
Yes.
So do you wonder about some of that? Some of
Oh
the
my
businesses out
gosh.
there, like you go in there, like I wonder. I mean, the time is taken. If they
Yeah.
don't change, they're
I
going
mean,
out.
every mall. You know, if anyone wants that feeling, go walk through a mall. It's just like all people that have not accepted reality is what everything is going on in there. And you know, it is what it is. I understand why you do it. I understand it's hard. I understand it hurts to, you know, think
Change
you were
is
wrong
hard.
and
Change
to
is
change. But
hard.
I think Amazon, like, not to go too high level, but I think that a lot of Amazon's success is because they've done a really good job. But I also think a lot of their success is because other people have done a really bad job.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, when you think calendar, you think Staples.
Yeah.
That's so valuable. You still think Staples. You don't think Amazon yet.
Yeah.
Soon that's going to change. But if Staples just could get it to you in 4 days, you would have continued to think Staples.
Yes.
And I think all these people are doing such a poor job that Amazon is just slowly becoming, you know, the place to go for everything.
I mean, Zappos became the #1 shoe store online by
Yeah.
just being great.
Yep.
By just, you know, hey, send me the shoes. Oh, it doesn't fit. I take it back. No problem.
Yep.
We were talking about Revolve earlier.
Yep.
You know, offline. You know,
Yeah.
and these guys are just doing an amazing job. I mean, I hate them because every time I look at my credit card statement, there's like 6 Revolve charges. My
Yes.
wife just buys stuff from Revolve. But the cool thing is, like, she buys them and she buys 5 dresses and then she wears one and she's like, oh, the other ones didn't look good. I send them back.
Yeah.
And they make it so easy. And one thing I've learned in business is you have to make it easy for people to do business with you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's just a fact, because if you don't, somebody else will. And I think that one thing I've learned too that's interesting is people will sometimes sacrifice even a better product for an easier experience. And so just because, I've seen a lot of people have this amazing product and think, well, our product is going to save us from all this other terrible stuff. Yeah. And it's just not true. I mean, people sometimes just want a calendar, or they just want, a pair of shoes or whatever. They don't. It's a very rare market that will want the product so bad that they'll get punished for wanting it. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, I agree. It's all about convenience and speed these days.
Yeah.
And being able to deliver on the product.
Yeah.
So, what is the state of Young and Reckless right now? What do you guys are working on? What are some exciting things that's coming up in the future?
Yeah, so really exciting. So it's, back to healthier and better and stronger and bigger than ever. We just came off Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which for us, now that we're an e-commerce brand, is the biggest week of the year. Yep. And it was bigger than ever and just great. And I think, once again, it's just cool to me. Those moments are always the moments where, leading up to Black Friday, you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, we have everything in line, everything's set up, but are the people there to be receptive to what we're doing? And because it's all e-com, it's kind of our check-in every year of, are people there?
How healthy you are.
Yes. So that I'm fresh off a high of feeling like, oh my gosh, we're bigger than ever. And then at the same time, the road forward is also very clear, and there's a lot of opportunity. So like all the way down to like from starting in January, I'm bringing in a couple new just star e-commerce employees that I'm so excited about, and I think are going to add so much to the business. Even down to the creative side, like I think Young and Reckless still has a lot of work to do moving forward with what the brand means, and continuing to remind people what we stand for and making cool stuff. And I think another thing that happens is because content gets old in like a day, and because everything moves so fast, and you're doing influencer marketing, and you're doing Facebook ads, and you're doing whatever, you can tend to feel like you're doing a lot of work, but on the brand side, you weren't able to make much impact. And I understand that we need like influencers wearing our stuff and tagging us, and you got to do the work.
Yes.
But that's not as fun to me, because you're not able to. It's not the same as releasing a campaign or a video or something that you're really excited about because it explains what the brand is. Yeah. So I think really being able to, now that we can breathe and celebrate a little bit, put a little bit more effort into branding and putting that message out there, I'm really, really excited.
I'm excited, man. I mean, you guys got great stuff all the time. You guys are always, cutting edge, innovating. Do you guys still, have shelf space in some stores?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're still in Macy's, still in Tilly's, big in PacSun still. Still a handful of different littler stores and stuff all across the country. We're also in Germany, in Canada, a little bit in Australia. So we're very much so still in brick and mortar stores. And I think, to be honest, like PacSun, for instance, has done an incredible job at sort of, they've shrunk some of their store count. They've really focused on these key moments. They have really cool projects with like Fear of God and all these different collabs that are really cool in like the streetwear world. And when you walk in their store, it really looks like the future. Yeah. So my point is, I think there are some stores that are really going to figure it out. Yeah. And I think there is going to be a healthy retail business for someone like us.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. It's a difference between going to Walmart and going to Target.
Yeah.
Big time. Like you see the difference, you feel the difference. Some retail stores just get it.
Yep.
And sometimes we just want to look at stuff, feel stuff, and touch that stuff before we buy. So
exactly.
I'm not giving up hope on that either.
Exactly. I think it's important, and I think you just got to watch it. And you got to work with the right people, and you got to do the right work. And I think we will always have a meaningful business in stores. But e-commerce, I think the growth is like unlimited.
Oh my God.
What's possible. We were talking about Revolve. They just went public, and that's an e-commerce clothing brand. Yeah. They just went public and are worth whatever, $1.5 billion, whatever it is. That's insane. And I know those guys, and I've interviewed them on my podcast, and they're just like us. Like they're not some like brilliant rocket scientists, like, oh, who's that guy? They're just like us. They figured it out. They figured out this new market, and the upside is limitless.
Yeah. So, you're such an inspiration to young
Thank you, man.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You're still very young,
Yeah.
and you started very young.
Yeah.
So I bet you probably get so many messages. Hey, I'm young. When you were started, I want to start a clothing brand. I want to start a business.
Yeah.
And first of all, what advice do you have as somebody that was in your shoes when you were 18 or 19
Yeah.
that wants to start a business or start an e-commerce brand, and and what do you see that most young entrepreneurs go wrong?
Yeah. I think back to the beginning of the episode, I think my first advice for someone that young is just get around other people that are doing it. Yeah. So if you're sitting at home,
Proximity.
yeah, if you're sitting like alone, not really surrounded by people like that, and you think that you're just going to change the world, you might. But I wouldn't bet on it, right? Get around people who are doing it. Educate yourself on the little details of what's working and what's not. Just learn. The second thing is, like, you should start today by super underestimating what you actually know. I think it's good to be confident, and a lot of people hear this message of confidence, and that's really important. But
there's a difference between cocky and confidence.
Yeah, and I also think there's like a difference in I'm confident that I know everything right now, and I'm confident that I can figure anything out given the right amount of time, right? That's very different. And so I think that you have to just don't ever overestimate what you already know. Go learn, continue to stay inspired about that original idea.
So good.
Yeah, and don't ever who cares if you look stupid? Who cares if you, people take themselves too serious, and they want to know it all now, and they want to look like a boss now.
I'd rather look stupid and be rich.
Yeah, I love looking stupid. I love when I am in a meeting or a book or whatever, and I'm like, whoa, I had no idea, because that just opened up a whole new thing. So go figure that out. Don't ever take yourself too serious. No matter what you see on Instagram or whatever, don't ever think that everyone has it figured out, because that's all fake. The greatest people, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they're all sitting asking questions. So start with those two things, and I think you'll find yourself way beyond where you thought you could be in 5 years.
Well, brother, I can't thank you enough for this interview. Man. For those people who are living under the rock and haven't heard from you and don't know where you are, where can they find you? So
the easiest place is Drama on Instagram. I post pretty much everything on there. I have a podcast everywhere where podcasts are called Short Story Long, where I interview great people like yourself and just learn how they did it and try to get that proximity thing through a podcast. That's it. I don't need to plug a bunch. Youngandreckless.com. If you go to those things, you'll know more than enough of what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, brother, thank you for having me. Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for having me on HQ.
This was amazing.
Thank you
so much.